You're listening to Enjoy It While It Lasts. I'm your host, Herman Faust. Today's episode, I will be looking at the NFL Wildcard Weekend to start my coverage of the NFL playoffs. I'm going to tell you the stories of the games and put a period on the season for the teams that got eliminated and look forward to the games coming up next week as well. Pretty much every game this weekend was at least good. There was not a single blowout. There was not a single game that felt that it was boring, for me at least, throughout the game. I'm going to go ahead and talk about them in order that they happened. So I'm going to start with the Rams, who came in at 12-5, going to Carolina to play against the 8-9 Panthers. Real quick, I've never liked that. I understand. I like the idea that winning a division, it's in football, so you're not going to be able to play everybody. So divisions matter a lot more in as far as figuring out the regular season and figuring out who's going to make the playoffs than, say, basketball or hockey or baseball. I like having divisions in football. I like division winners making the playoffs. I don't like division winners automatically getting a home game. I don't like an 8-win team getting a home game against a 12-win team. But it's not a hill that I'm going to make this big battle or die on. I just don't like it. Anyway, this game was the one that I thought going into it was going to be the least entertaining game of the weekend. And it turns out that it might have been the best. The Rams are a legit good team with the current best quarterback in the NFC in Matthew Stafford. And he's right up there with Josh Allen for the best quarterback in the playoffs. The Panthers have been very up and down all season long. They've had games where they looked great, including against the Rams earlier in the year, and games where they looked like a team with a losing record. This is true for them as a team and also for Bryce Young's performance as a quarterback. He seems to me to be developing into a quarterback that is good, but not consistent enough to be great. By the way, before I get into this game, I want to say how impressed I am with the Rams for being this good still and for not ever suffering from the down seasons that we thought they would have to. When they made the trade for Stafford and all the other trades they made a few years ago, they seemingly gambled their future for a chance at a Super Bowl, and it worked out for them. They won the Super Bowl. But then they remained a good team, and despite having very little draft capital, they have stayed a top team. Having a fifth rounder turn into the best offensive weapon in the game in Puka Nacua goes a long way in making that possible. But they've also handled their cap and other draft picks masterfully to keep a team that doesn't feel like it's just barely holding on by a thread. Now to the game itself. The first couple of drives looked like what I thought the whole game was going to look like. The Rams moved down the field relatively easily. Nacua and Stafford were slicing up the Panthers defense, and while the Panthers didn't look like they were completely incapable offensively, the Rams defense stopped them on a fourth down attempt and also got a tipped ball interception. So after both teams had the ball twice, the Rams were up 14-0. The Panthers were able to get it together offensively a little bit and answered with a touchdown of their own that was ran in by Hubbard. Hubbard was great for the Panthers in this game. It looked to me like he is the engine that makes their offense go, with Coker being a good secondary weapon, at least in this game himself. I say that even though Hubbard had a drop that at the time felt big because it would have been a clear first down, and instead it forced a punt, allowing the Rams to get the ball back with the 14-7 lead. But then when the Panthers stopped the Ram and forced a punt of their own, then this was the first big momentum swing because their return man, Etienne, had the ball bounce off his helmet and the Rams recovered. This was the point where I thought that LA was basically going to end the game. It was 17-7 at this point. The Rams had the ball in Carolina territory, and they were going to get the ball to start the second half. So I was thinking that by the time Bryce Young would get his hands on the ball again, the Rams would already be ahead by 3 or 4 scores. But instead, they were unsuccessful on a 4th and 3 from the 19-yard line. I, for one, agree with going for it. If it's 4th and 3 or under, and if you're inside the 20, I'm one that I say that's time to go for it, unless the score dictates you kicking the field goal. And seeing as they were at the point of trying to completely put their foot on their throats, a field goal would not have done that. They were going for the touchdown to try to end the game. However, it didn't work out for them. So instead, there was a huge pass interference call against the Rams once they failed that 4th down, and also a big completion to Jalen Coker that set the Panthers up for a 16-yard touchdown run by Bryce Young. When the Rams did get the ball in the second half, they ended up going 3 and out, and the Panthers responded with a very time-consuming drive that ended in a field goal to tie it. Those few drives after the muff punt and to the start of the second half was a huge missed opportunity for the Rams to put the game away early. But I wasn't sure if it was going to cost them their season or simply make the rest of the game that much more difficult. The Rams retook the lead 20-17 on their next drive, and then both teams had a couple of failed drives back and forth before the Panthers hit another big pass, again to Coker, and the drive ended with another Hubbard touchdown. Stafford took the Rams down the field to score and retake the lead with a touchdown pass, but this drive was not an easy drive by any means. There was a 3rd and 1 converted. They had to have a 4th and 1 converted, and there was a near interception that Puka Nacua ended up turning into a defender to break up the pass. Later in the fourth quarter, the Rams had the ball again and were stopped and punting with about 4 or 5 minutes left in the game. Carolina was able to block the punt and start the drive at the 31-yard line of the Rams. So with the short field, they took advantage and ended up scoring a touchdown, another pass to Coker. And this put us at 31-27 with 2.5 minutes left. Unfortunately for the Panthers, Stafford on this drive looked like he did in the opening of the game again, and seemingly easily drove down the field and got the score to get the lead back, with just over 30 seconds left. The Panthers then had 4 incomplete passes on their final chance to end the game, and the Rams moved on. The Rams coach, Sean McVay, has really impressed me in his tenure there, because the Rams offense that he runs now is not the same style of offense he ran when they first started in his run. I already mentioned how he was able to keep the team at a high level during the time that was supposed to be their downstretch after winning the Super Bowl previously. His entire run with the Rams as their head coach has been great. And I guess I'm starting to expect that as long as he's there, they will be decent at the very worst. And as long as Matthew Stafford is playing, and who's to say how long that is? He's 37, so any year could be his last. But he hasn't said anything about any possible retirement. And quarterbacks play into their 40s regularly. So I don't know how long he's going to play. But as long as he is playing and his body hasn't betrayed him, I think the Rams will be a contender for every year those two are together. For now, they move on to the divisional round. The Panthers are a team that I could easily see going either way next year. This could be their high water mark. The best that this coach and quarterback and team can all do together. They didn't show a lot throughout the season to make me think that they are for sure on the rise. So this could be it. But however, they did have enough moments, including this game, to make me see that it is possible they come back even better next year. All right, on to the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. Going into this season, I would have guessed that these teams' records were flipped, and then I would have thought that Green Bay underperformed. But when defensive end Micah Parsons, whom the Packers fleeced the Dallas Cowboys for in a trade right before the season started, when he got injured late in the season, they lost 4 straight games. Caleb Williams of the Bears is another young quarterback that's grown, and adding Ben Johnson as his head coach is probably a huge reason why. This game had some extra hype to it because it's one of those traditional NFL rivalries. And also, Chicago is one of the few outdoor stadiums that is left in the game. The Bears got the opening kickoff, and they held the ball for over half of the first quarter, but had to settle for kicking a field goal. Then the Packers had a near perfect rest of the first half. The Green Bay Packers scored touchdowns on their first 3 possessions, and all of them coming from Jordan Love passes, and the Bears couldn't do anything else when they had the ball. Caleb Williams threw a pick. They failed on a couple of 4th down conversion attempts. The only thing that went wrong for the Packers was missing a field goal to end the first half. But even that was a long field goal, so it's not like something went tragically wrong. Then the Bears' defense made things a lot more difficult for the Packers for the rest of the game in the second half. They started the second half with 3 or 4 punts, forcing the Packers to have 3 or 4 punts. And meanwhile, the Bears added a couple of field goal drives to chip away. Then the Bears exploded in the fourth quarter with a field goal before ending the game with 3 touchdown drives. The Bears finished out the comeback, and this is something that they've done all season, leading the league in comeback wins. This was a great game and a tale of 2 halves, but I do think this game also has the most fun stuff to talk about after it was over. Ben Johnson apparently likes to talk a lot of shit. He ran over to Matt LaFleur, and it was almost a quick hand slap and sprint away more than a handshake. It caught my attention as odd live, and then seeing replays and photos, it cracked me up the way he was so petty in his in and out. I read about it a little bit, and apparently when the Bears have beaten the Packers in the regular season, he gave LaFleur a hard slap on the back. Hard enough to where this time there was a dude assigned to watch and protect his back. Ben Johnson also has had beef with the Lions coach Dan Campbell this year. So this seems to just be his style. In the locker room post game, he was yelling, "Fuck the Packers, fuck the Packers." He's just wild, and he's not here to be your friend. I also like how riled up Caleb Williams gets people. He carries himself a certain type of way. People talk shit and don't like how zesty he can be at times when he talks or when he poses for photos. Or they don't like the way he dresses or the fact that he paints his nails. Basically, people are saying without saying that they think he's too feminine and not tough enough because of his overall aesthetic and the things that have nothing to do with his actual toughness or his skill or leadership. Lil Wayne even tweeted out something about how they got beat by bro with purple nails. And Caleb Williams responded by posting his end of game interview quote about how they just keep fighting and then they look up at the end of the game and they see who wins. Followed by a highlight reel of him from this game with a Lil Wayne song as the background. I love it. The Bears quarterback and coach both have matching pettiness bones. They're both relatively younger and seemingly rising together and picking the team up with them. They've had a lot of close games, close score wins this year, one score wins, I should say. And I mentioned the comebacks already. Those tend to even out over time a little bit and can be considered somewhat luck related by many NFL analysts. But because of their overall trajectory, even if their luck does even out and come down a little bit next year, they still might be a better team with at least the same type of record overall. As for the Packers, I don't know what to make of them, honestly. I think Jordan Love is a decent to good quarterback, but I think he's the type that it's going to take a lot to have around him to win. And I don't think he's going to be the carry your team on a deep run type quarterback. Their defense is solid, especially when they did have Micah. And he generally is not injury prone, so you can probably expect him to be back in full force next year. But in every year he had with Dallas, he did always fade towards the end of the season and in the playoffs. So his history says that he might have been due for some bad games anyway. Of course, there's no way to really know what would have happened. I think I've seen enough evidence, though, of Matt LaFleur. Enough of his teams not holding on to leads, enough years of questionable in-game decisions, and questionable overall strategy at times. I think he's really a really good offensive mind, and he's probably a good coordinator, but in my opinion, I don't think he's a very good head coach. I think maybe Aaron Rodgers wasn't just being an egotistical jerk whenever he complained about him in the past. He might have actually been onto something. These two games give us next week's divisional matchup. The Rams will go to Chicago. We'll see if the Rams can fight off the up-and-coming Bears to go to the NFC Championship game, or if the Bears arrive a year earlier than many would have expected by taking down a perennial NFC powerhouse. The next game on the schedule was the Buffalo Bills going against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Bills are the only team in the AFC that we as a fandom are used to seeing and expecting to fight for the conference, as Kansas City and Baltimore did not make it this year. But even though the Bills are here and they won 12 games, this year has felt slightly off for them. They aren't quite as good as they have been in most areas, but they do still have Josh Allen. And he is capable of putting a team on his back. They also carry extra pressure this postseason, though. Their coach, McDermott, is questioned because he's had a quarterback the caliber of Josh Allen, and he's had some great teams around him, but he hasn't been able to get those teams over the hump. Allen himself is also questioned as to whether he really is in the top tier of quarterbacks. Spoiler alert, he absolutely is in the top tier quarterbacks. These criticisms are off base, if you ask me, but they're still loud, and the critics will definitely be loud if he doesn't at least make the Super Bowl in a year when his rivals for the best quarterback in the league aren't even in the playoffs. The Bills team overall has declined slightly in quality, so each player has to also feel the pressure of their window possibly closing. A quick exit would have big implications for Buffalo. To be honest, coming into this game, I didn't know much about the Jags. I was surprised that their record was this good. I feel like Trevor Lawrence is the real deal. I know this is their coach's first year as a head coach, but that's really all I got on them coming into this game. So I didn't know what to expect. They definitely showed what they were made of, and this was a great back and forth game. Each team started the game by punting on their opening possession, and then there was a great interception by Shaq Thompson. He jumped under a route and picked off Trevor Lawrence and set up the Bills for a field goal to open the scoring. Then the Jags come storming down the field. A couple of short passes and then some great runs, 20, 14, and 13-yarders back-to-back plays. Sets up a TD pass from Lawrence. And immediately after, the Bills fumble the kickoff. This sets the Jags up at the 36, and they work it down into the red zone and get to a 4th and 2 at the 9-yard line. They decide to go for it. Like I said in the Rams game, this is the type of situation that I think was going for it was the right thing to do, but it did not work out. So the Bills dodged the bullet, and the Jags were not able to put back-to-back touchdowns on the board before the Bills' offense was able to see the field again. Instead, Buffalo responded by having a 92-yard 10-play drive, mostly on the strength of Josh Allen passes, but Cook had a few good runs for them as well, and the Bills take the lead back. The half ends with the teams trading punts and the Jags missing a 54-yard field goal that would have tied it up. When the second half started, they traded field goals, and the third quarter ended with a score of Bills 13, Jags 10. And then both teams scored more in the fourth quarter than they did in the previous 3. There were 4 straight touchdown drives, both offenses clicking, both quarterbacks playing great. This was probably the single most entertaining quarter of football this weekend. The Jags scored a touchdown with 4 minutes left in the game to take a 24-20 lead. It felt like it was going to be one of those games of whoever has the ball last wins. But at the same time, both teams had played 3 quarters of really good defense. And we're at the point where it does only take one mistake to send your season goodbye. Buffalo got the ball down to the Jacksonville 11, and they had a 4th and 1. They have to go for it. Even if they weren't the type of team that would go for it automatically anyway, which they are, they needed a touchdown. A field goal would do them no good. They line up for a quarterback sneak, and Josh Allen converts on these situations as well as just about anyone, even with the Eagles' Jalen Hurts and the tush push. Not only did they pick it up, though, but he stays on his feet, and he pushes the pile, and then is pushed by a teammate, and eventually picked up by a teammate and almost carried forward. It was ruled a touchdown on the field, but replay showed that he was a yard short. But even without it being a touchdown, this play was one of those that gets remembered. I know I'll remember seeing the Bills push the Jags back for over 10 yards in a straight contest of strength. They easily got the score on the next play and took the lead back with just over a minute left to play. Then, when the Jags are trying to start their drive, on his first drop back, Trevor Lawrence tries to hit Myers over the middle of the field, but he is well defended and the ball goes off his hands. The defender might have gotten his hand in there to deflect the pass as well. And the ball pops up and is intercepted. Game over. The Jaguars' season is over, but their fans can't be too disappointed, I don't think. Trevor Lawrence continues to show that he is the real deal, and he's getting closer to entering his prime. Their new coach brought the team several strides forward, and they are set up to be at the start of a good run. The Bills move on to face the number one seeded Denver Broncos, who have a killer defense, and that will definitely make Allen pull some tricks out of his bag if they are going to survive for another week. But for now, at least, they didn't get ousted in the first round, so all that pressure can, for the moment, be relieved. Although their fans' expectations probably are going to need them to pull an upset next week to not be upset. The next game on the ledger was the San Francisco 49ers going to play the Philadelphia Eagles. This is another one of those games where the home team had a worse record than the road team. The Eagles won the NFC East at 11-6, but the 49ers had won 12 games this year. This was also the game that I was most excited to see coming in. Defending champion Philadelphia Eagles, who at times looked just as dominant as they did all last year, and at other times just looked weirdly lost. Hosting the San Francisco 49ers, consistently hard-hitting, one of the toughest teams to play year in, year out. Extremely physical on both sides of the ball and incredibly smart schemes. You got one head coach that seems like a quiet genius and another one that comes off as a lovable doofus. I think Nick Sirianni is actually a better coach than Philly gives him credit for. But his press conferences don't do him any favors. I'm surprised that in Philly they don't like him more, though, simply for his don't give a fuck demeanor. It might be because there's always something weird with the team. They make it to the Super Bowl one year, then look dominant for most of the following year before completely falling off and missing the playoffs. Last year, they dominate most of the year and win the Super Bowl, but even then, there are these times of discontent within the team, and there's always reports of different things going on, of people not being on the same page. This year, they always look like they're playing with their food, basically. Their offense is not as explosive as it was. Saquon Barkley looked like he's just about half a step off from his incredible last year. They had several games that ended with Hurts having very few passing yards, and he's even had to respond to reports that teammates question whether he is aggressive enough in his throws or good enough of a quarterback. The 49ers are good pretty much every year, as I mentioned. Kyle Shanahan has proven that he can win with just about anyone at quarterback. In my opinion, he has not failed to win a Super Bowl. He's elevated a team whose talent wasn't as good as the best teams in the league and took them to the Super Bowl twice when they shouldn't have made it that far. A stat that I love about the 49ers is that teams almost always lose the week after playing against them because San Francisco beats you up when you play them. Consequently, though, they are also one of the most injury-plagued teams every year. Anyway, to this weekend's game. It started off with both teams scoring a touchdown on their opening drives, but the Eagles missed their extra point. This was a typical back and forth, hard-hitting, close, fun playoff game for the first half. The Eagles had a long scoring drive early in the second quarter to take the lead. There was another moment of weirdness. A.J. Brown had a couple of drops, and after one, he seemed to be sulking or was just taking his time. And Sirianni ran down the field screaming for A.J. Brown to get off the field because they were trying to get the punt team on. And they had a moment of yelling at each other, which is not the first time this has happened in game between the two. They all say it's normal heat of the moment stuff and that they have a great relationship, but Brown's body language seems to me to be a guy that doesn't like the team he's on, or at least doesn't like his coach. Another big moment in the second quarter was when 49er tight end George Kittle tore his Achilles. They were already missing two of their best defensive players coming into this game, Fred Warner and Nick Bosa both being out. And this took away one of their better offensive weapons, their better blockers, and just overall emotional team leader. Turns out Kittle is probably going to miss most, if not all, of next season as well, because this injury usually takes a year to recover from. The third quarter didn't have a lot of offense. The Eagles did add a field goal, but that's about it. No other drives even threatened. For the most part, though, this seemed, to my eyes, to be great defense, not bad offense. On the first play of the fourth quarter, the 49ers pulled off a great trick play. After the snap, Purdy quickly hands the ball off to a man in motion running to the left, who then, after a couple of steps, tosses the ball back to the wide receiver Jennings. It looks like it's going to be a return sweep, a reverse. But as he runs to the sideline, he pulls up and throws a pass to a wide open Christian McCaffrey for the touchdown and the 17-16 lead. Later in the fourth, after a Brock Purdy thrown interception, were the defining drives of the game. The Eagles took the ball from their own 38 and made their way down to the San Francisco 21-yard line. Then the San Fran defense stepped up and stuffed Barkley on a run for a no gain, forced an incomplete pass by Hurts, and then only gave up 6 on a 3rd and 10. With 8 minutes left in the game and faced with a 4th and 4 at the 15, Nick Sirianni opted to kick the field goal and take the lead instead of going for it. This is one of those times where I would be very torn on what to do. I can't fault his choice, but to me, it's a close enough decision that I don't think I would have faulted him if he went for it either. I do think he made the right call with the way the game had been going. Full of struggle, defensive battle late in the game. It's 4th and 4, not 4th and 1. I think taking the points was the right call. Unfortunately for the Eagles, San Francisco had their best drive of the night after that. Purdy led them right down the field in 10 plays, helped by a defensive holding penalty on a would-be sack, and scored a touchdown with less than 3 minutes left in the game. Philadelphia quickly found themselves in a 4th and 5 at their own 40 after a horrible drop by A.J. Brown in the middle of the field. He was open on the 3rd down play. He had the 1st down and would have been into 49er territory. The ball hit him in stride in his hands, but he dropped it. They were able to convert, though, and overcome that with a 15-yard pass to Dallas Goedert, who was by far Hurts' most reliable target in this game. That got them rolling a little bit, and they made it to the San Francisco 20-yard line. Then a huge sack. Situationally huge, not a huge yardage loss, but a situationally huge sack. Put the Eagles behind the chains, and a couple of incomplete passes brought up fourth down. And that missed extra point from the start of the game comes back to haunt them because they can't kick a field goal. They're down by 4. So they must go for it. And they don't get it. And San Francisco survives this one. They will go on to face the number 1 seed in the NFC, the Seattle Seahawks, who looks very similar to Denver in the AFC in that they both have monster defenses that they lean on heavily. The two split their regular season matchups. San Francisco is tough, but after another huge injury, I don't know how much of a chance I give them next week. But they're good enough that I wouldn't be surprised either way. Philadelphia, meanwhile, have I mentioned they're weird? They have been, there have been some fans and people that cover the team that have wanted Sirianni fired pretty much every step of the way and feel that this season is a huge disappointment. As a Cowboys fan, I would love to be disappointed by a subpar season after winning a Super Bowl. But we'll have to wait and see where they go. I don't think the team will feel the same way that the fans do. I don't think they'll be looking for a new head coach. But they probably will be looking into getting a new offensive coordinator at least. I do think they are on the downside of their run, though. I don't think next year will be better for them unless they surprise me with some moves for their offense this season. Moving forward through the schedule, come up to the Chargers at the Patriots. The Chargers and the Patriots have a couple of similarities for me. I like both of their head coaches, and both of them are relatively new to their team. It's Harbaugh's second year in San Diego and Vrabel's first year in New England. I think they both tend to elevate their teams overall, and they both just ooze this tough guy persona, while also seeming like they could sit down and have a real in-depth conversation with you. So they can teach you the game and then motivate you to execute and run through a brick wall for them. I think both teams' quarterbacks are also full of potential, performing well early in their career. Granted, May seems to be doing better on fulfilling that potential. And Herbert has reached the point where he's long enough in his NFL career where people are already questioning his long-term ceiling. Both teams also had a way better year than I thought they would have. I was very excited to watch this one play out, but I'm going to have to be honest with you, I fucked up on this game. I thought I had set it to record, but I didn't. So I didn't get to watch this one. I read game recaps, I watched highlight reels, and I looked at the drive-by-drive summaries. It's not perfect. This doesn't always let me know why something happened as well as watching a game would, but I can at least know what happened for the most part. This was by far the biggest defensive battle of the weekend. Since I didn't watch it all, I can't tell you if there was poor offense mixed in or if this was just purely great defense. In the middle of the first quarter, with the game still scoreless, Drake May threw a pass that was tipped at the line and bounced between two Chargers defenders before one secured the interception and set the Chargers up with a 1st and goal at the 10. They ran the ball 3 times and then went for it on 4th and 2, but the pass was incomplete. As I've said with previous games, this situation isn't one I have a problem with them going for it on, but I don't like the play call sequence overall. I think you got to give Herbert a chance to pass on either second or third down. And if you aren't going to do that, if you're going to go with the run on first, second, and third, I definitely don't think you should line up in shotgun and pass it. I might have liked them to run out of shotgun there to maybe try to fool the defense, or even just go ahead and follow through with that mentality that you set up on the first 3 downs by saying that we are going to get 10 yards on the ground, even if it takes a 4th try. Either way, this was a huge defensive stand by the New England Patriots. The offense rewarded their effort with their longest drive of the game, going 93 yards in 14 plays. Faced with their own 4th down, 4th and 4 at the 5, the Patriots opted for the field goal to take the lead, which is a boo yay moment after having that long of a drive. The Chargers followed that up with their longest drive of the game on their next possession and got the ball down within the 5-yard line again. This time, however, on 4th down, they went ahead and kicked it on 4th and 2. I think this decision, paired with the earlier one, confuses me a bit. What do you believe as a team? I don't get why they didn't kick it the first time or go for it the second time. It is inconsistent. The Pats were able to add another field goal just before the half to take a 6-3 lead. The defenses were completely in control of this game. The Chargers started the second half with a punt, and the Patriots looked like they were driving to possibly try to take a stronger hold on the game. They went down inside the red zone again on the strength of May's arm, but a sack fumble ended the drive with no points, and it kept the Chargers breathing. The next time the Patriots got the ball, they put together another decent drive that stalled, but they were able to kick a field goal. Then in the early 4th, they had their first and only fully successful drive with 80 yards on 7 plays. And this time they were able to punch it in and get that touchdown on a 28-yard pass. So the key for them was to attack the end zone from just slightly further away instead of getting closer before going for it. At this point, it seemed like it was clear, though, who the better team was, as well as who was going to win. Because even though both defenses were strong, the Patriots had 4 good drives in a row. The Chargers were never able to find any footing. The Patriots defense never let up, and the Pats held on to win 16-3. Personally, I don't see this iteration of the Chargers coming back better next year. I am in the camp of people that thinks Herbert has reached his full potential already. Even though I like him, I also wonder if today's game has started to pass by Jim Harbaugh. His offense seems to struggle quite a bit, and I don't mean either of these opinions to be based off of this game in particular. Now for the last game of the weekend, the Monday Nighter. First off, I want to say congratulations to the Texans for not being the first game of the playoff weekend, which in the past also meant they were the first team eliminated from the playoffs. It felt like it was almost a decade of the Texans squeaking in and then getting that Saturday early game and then getting bounced somewhat handily. Seriously, though, the team has made real strides, mostly their quarterback, CJ Stroud. He always had moments of looking good, but this year he took a step forward in consistency. The Steelers are always going to be, at worst, decent with Mike Tomlin. Since Ben Roethlisberger retired, they haven't been able to find another quarterback. So that's also pretty much meant that at best they're going to be decent too. A tough defensive first team that plays close games and makes few enough mistakes to win a good amount of them. That's pretty much what a Mike Tomlin team guarantees you. This season, they tried to solve that quarterback problem by bringing in the 75-year-old Aaron Rodgers. They tried to get the magic that the Bucs got with Brady a few years ago, but it hasn't quite worked out. He's looked like Aaron Rodgers at times, and other times he's looked like a 42-year-old man playing on the field with 20-year-old elite athletes. I have the least to say about this game, but it's not because of the score. If you just looked at the score, you would think the Texans dominated the Steelers. And while their defense absolutely dominated the Steelers' offense and shut them down, their offense was being held in check for almost the entire game as well. However, this game was the one out of all the good defenses that were played where I felt like the offense was also a little bit to blame. They were a little shaky, and that goes for both teams. I think Rodgers missed some throws that were there for him, and that the Texans didn't take advantage of a couple of opportunities that they were given. I mean, don't get me wrong. Most of the credit goes to both defenses for sure. And being out of rhythm makes it harder for offenses to capitalize when they do get those opportunities. But there were still a few times where it looked like they had a chance to make something happen and didn't. If you look at the drive chart for this game, though, you might be able to see why I don't have a lot to say overall besides simply praising the defensive efforts. Punt, field goal, fumble, punt, touchdown, punt, fumble, field goal, punt. And we are at half with a score of 7-6. The third quarter was scoreless as well. The game really broke open in the fourth when the Steelers were trying to respond after a Texan field goal made the score 10-6 when Rodgers was sacked, fumbled, and Texans defender Sheldon Rankins had a scoop and score. This took the score to 17-6, and because of the way the defenses had been playing, this already seemed insurmountable. But just to be sure that the Texans were actually able to put together a good drive. This was the only good drive of the game by either team. It went 87 yards and scored a touchdown. Took the game clock down to about 3.5 minutes. And that was pretty much, for all intents and purposes, game. Rodgers did throw an interception that was run back for another score in the following possession, and it seems like that will be his last NFL pass. I was shocked that after this game, Tomlin stepped down from the head coaching position of the Steelers amidst tons of noise that he was about to be fired. I'm not sure if he really wanted to leave or was given the opportunity to simply step down instead of being dismissed. But I do know that I would love to have Mike Tomlin coach my team. I think if you give him the right ingredients, he knows the recipes to make a meal. The two defenses that showed the strongest this week will face off against each other in the divisional round when the Texans go to New England to face the Patriots. And I will be back next week to talk about these divisional round games and see where the story goes of this year's NFL playoffs. Remember, you only got one life to live. You might as well enjoy it while it lasts.